Hi, everyone, and welcome to another week and another powerful conversation with yet another powerful woman. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Jane van Zyl. I know I have the pronunciation of her name correct because we've just had a very long conversation about that. But I'm going to let Jane introduce herself as she will get her introduction much more accurate than I would. So welcome, Jane. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks so much, Claire. And that pronunciation was perfect. It is Jane van Zyl. My surname is originally South African. If it was Dutch, it would be VAN and then ZIJL.
Okay.
So I know, one of those kind of completely useless facts about me. I'm the chief exec at Working Families. We are a charity that works to remove the barriers that parents and carers face in the workplace. And we do that in three ways. We have a free legal advice line for working parents and carers. So we understand what's not working.
Yeah.
And the parents and carers who call us want to keep their jobs. And then the other thing we do is we work with employers to support them to create, build and sustain flexible and family-friendly workplaces.
Yeah.
And we use those two views. What we know is possible in the workplace because of the work we do with employers. What we know is not working from the calls that we have with our working parents and carers. And we use that to drive for positive policy change.
Yeah, it's incredible. So how long has Working Families been established as a charity and helping people?
It started in 1979, literally around a kitchen table in Clapham.
Wow.
Yes, with originally mothers who were finding it in the late 70s, early 80s, 1970s, 1980s, incredibly difficult to get back into the jobs that they had before they had their children.
Yeah.
And sadly, many mothers will tell you that not much has changed. Hopefully it is more possible now to get a job that matches your capabilities and competencies and experience. But we still find as a charity, we do research every year called the Working Families Index. And we absolutely know there is still a motherhood penalty. Many, many women are working below their capability and their competence. They're trading that for flexibility. But 80% of women, of mothers, work in the UK. That's according to the Resolution Foundation. But the vast majority of those women are working in part-time roles. And those roles, and there's nothing wrong with a part-time role, but many of those roles are just not paying them what they should be being paid, what they could be being paid. So so that's where we work, in that area.
I think it's a really must be a very fascinating but challenging environment to be working in, because you say it started in the late 70s, so 40 years on, and this is still a topic that I come across all the time with women that just don't know how to strike a balance between working because they need to work to earn the money, but also because they need some fulfillment that is not just being a mother. I mean, being a mother is obviously a very important role, but it's people want to create a balance that is right for them. Are we ever going to get to a point where it's easy to establish the right balance for everybody, or is it always going to be an area that is going to be challenging?
That is a very difficult question for me to answer, because for me there is something about work-life balance that comes from a point of privilege. We've just done a survey of households with an income of less than £50,000. And those households, the vast majority of them, both parents are working full-time. But they have both had to make adjustments, and many have refused promotions or not gone on training because they haven't been able to find the childcare. Either it doesn't exist or they can't afford it. So I think there is a bit of a divide between those people who are able to earn more and therefore, and are probably in roles where you're working from home, or you have the possibility of working from home, and are in jobs that are kind of knowledge-based. Because those roles, it is probably a little easier to get a better balance in terms of flexibility around pickup times, drop-off times.
Yeah.
However, I've just read PwC research, which says that if an 18-year-old woman goes into the workplace today, she will not experience gender parity in terms of pay for the rest of her working life. So that for me is absolutely appalling. And worldwide, the gender pay gap is going to take something like 150 years to resolve. So for me, actually, I find it horrific that at my age, I'm still fighting for women to be paid at the same rate as men, and for women to have the same opportunities. And the Young Women's Trust tell us that they support women between 18 and I think it's 25 or 26. And there is a broken rung on the ladder for women. The gender pay gap for women starts when women start getting pocket money, because their pocket money is generally in exchange for caring responsibilities or household responsibilities within the home.
And that's not the case for
It's
boys.
Not the case for boys in the same way, no.
Wow. Okay, that's kind of blown me away a bit. As a mother of two daughters, it wouldn't even cross my mind that there would be a difference from that early on as well.
Yep. It is just absolutely extraordinary. And so for me, I think it's an urgent issue. Apart from anything else, as a society, we are losing out so much in terms of just not getting women in positions of power. And we're just, from the perspective of productivity and the British economy, we could be doing so much better. All of the studies say that if women were in work, doing work that they wanted to their competence levels, there would be billions and billions added to the economy. Of course, that also means that we need to rethink childcare.
Yes.
Particularly because childcare is not just about somebody who's going to be there for the child if when the parents are not, but also it's about early education. It's about supporting children to understand the things that they need so that they're school ready by the time they go to school. So I think there is a lot of work to do, and Working Families is part of this much broader ecosystem of all kinds of organizations that are doing amazing work in this space. We run an Instagram clinic once a quarter. Our legal advice team run an Instagram clinic once a quarter with Jolie Brayley from Pregnant Then Screwed. Mm-hmm. She has an amazing voice in this space. We also we have two ambassadors at the moment, Anna Whitehouse of Mother Pucker, and Elliot Ray of Music Football Fatherhood. Because for us, our argument is a feminist one, that we need to have equal opportunity for both men and women, and parenting needs to be done by both men and women, fathers and mothers. There are still you still occasionally hear people saying, "Oh, my husband babysat the kids." Well, no, he didn't. Unless he's not actually their father. He provided, in a blended family, but he provided parenting care for his children.
He did his job, you mean?
And to be fair to many younger dads, they want to parent. They want to be involved. Life has changed since the 1970s, when men spent on average 15 minutes a day with their children. 15 minutes a day. you know. And dads want to be involved. They want to be the caregivers. And if we're going to move away from the kind of toxic masculinity that is pushed by people like Andrew Tate and similar, then we need to have people like Elliot Ray around who are actively talking about men's mental health and men's ability to be fathers and how good they are at it.
Yeah, and they are good because they bring a completely different perspective to parenting, and then that means that your children grow up having this difference of views that come from two different parents, which I think makes them more resilient and more open as they grow up as well.
Yep, and also other role models. There are obviously lots and lots of single parents around. And for those parents to be able to also draft in other adults who may be able to support, that is a really good thing.
Yeah. So what was it that got you into working in this sort of space? Is it a passion that you've always had?
Kind of yes and no. I'm not a parent. But sorry, I'm just waving to somebody who's knocking on my window. The joys or not of working from home. So I first started working flexibly in my early 20s when my father was diagnosed with cancer. And I lived quite a way away from my workplace, so probably about an hour's drive in a car, and my father was in a hospital around the corner from the office. And my then male boss, who was probably my father's age, really nice chap, agreed that I could flex my working hours so that I'd come in really early in the morning, miss the traffic, shorter commute, but also that I could take between 2 and 3 hours in the middle of the day to go and spend time with my father. And I hadn't had a good relationship with my dad. My parents were divorced and it was all a bit messy. And it transformed my relationship with my father. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity. My father and I had 1.5 years to build a relationship with one another. And that doesn't sound like a lot of time, but, it
on
was
a daily basis, though. I mean, that's a lot.
Yep. And so for me, flexible working in that instance was just extraordinary. I mean, I was probably more productive. And I just had this amazing opportunity given to me.
Yeah.
The gift of time. So, but I don't have children. I've been involved in the care of my husband's parents and also my mother. And, sadly, that they have now all died. But I've also had the privilege of being involved with my friends' children. So I have, between my husband and I think we have something like 9 godchildren.
Wow.
And we've been very involved in the lives of 7 of them. And that's really a gift the parents have given us. And I hope we've been helpful. I've done the odd emergency pickup. I've done the odd, he's got a broken leg. He needs ferrying to and from school every day. I've been at the school gates occasionally. I've done, all of those things. I've had little people spending the night. And, now that they're older, I get the joy of taking them out for lunch and having these fascinating conversations. So family is important to me. And I like to work. I really enjoy working. I don't have an artistic bone in my body. So if I could garden or paint or write or act or sing or play music, I would probably be doing all of those things.
Yes.
But I do enjoy my work. And so for me, it's that balance and that the benefit of, and through work, I've met people that I would never have met if I wasn't working.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a passion project, but at the same time, it is also pretty clear-eyed in terms of, I think work is a good thing for most people. I think it's really good to get you out of a kind of a slightly tighter knit group of people and get you out into the wider world. And I think, the skills that you learn and hopefully the resilience that working for a good quality employer can help you with is amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, I definitely hear and feel from you that the passion you have for the cause that you're working on. And so many people don't even have that. And so to be working in a field where you are making a difference on a day-to-day basis is something that's worth getting out of bed for every day.
Yeah, I do feel lucky.
Yeah, and it's I know that we don't all have necessarily an easy choice as to what we do as a profession, but when we can find something that gives us joy, then it's so good for us on so many levels. So I think that's really important. That's what I like to help my clients with, is how can they combine their skills with their passions to come up with something that brings them joy and makes a difference.
Yep.
Yeah.
We one of our trustees has just moved into an ambassador role, a woman called Helen Tupper, and she runs an organization called The Squiggly Career, she and her business partner. And that is all about, checking in what are the skills that you have and how else could they be used, and not assuming that you have to keep on rising up some kind of corporate ladder, because frankly, there isn't one. And it means that you're competing for one job at the top of the top of a very large triangle. And for me, it is that, work, it is around the joy. I started off wanting to do medicine. Then I decided that I wanted to do law. Then I decided that I couldn't do any of those. I ended up working a bit in change management. And then many years later, I now work in charities and have done since 2006. So I've had a squiggly career. And I feel great about it. So,
yeah. And I think I'm pretty sure I've listened to their podcast. I think they have a podcast today called Squiggly Careers.
Yeah.
And I think it was actually listening to their podcast that partly helped me feel comfortable with the fact that my career is so squiggly, because when you look back, you can see threads that pull everything together, and your experience evolves over time. But sometimes you look back and you think, gosh, I mean, somebody looking at your CV must think, gosh, what on earth were you doing? Just like jumping from here to here to here. But there is a logic there. So I think thanks to their podcast, that squiggly career concept really resonated. And now I don't care. My squiggly career is what makes me. And I think that's really, really important, because we can get so caught up in what we think other people's perceptions of us are as well, that it stops us again from pursuing an opportunity or creating an opportunity, as you were saying.
And, people's entrepreneurial skills are extraordinary. When I hear about the new businesses that are being started all over the place, the new supportive organizations that are popping up, you just think, wow, how amazing that we are, all of us, able to pull these threads together, find something that is fascinating to us as an individual, and then move forward with that. Which again goes back to my thing about, I think work is so valuable for so many people in so many ways. And of course, there is the issue that we all need to make some kind of a living. Particularly, just to kind of bring it back into the UK, 40% of people on universal credit in the UK are in work. That's 40% of people on universal credit are in work. And it's the reason they're on universal credit is they're not earning enough to be able to do without it. And, being on universal credit is not fun. There's not a lot of money that's given out. And particularly if you have a larger family. So, there is that thing of trying to encourage people to pull those threads together of all of the experiences that they have in their lives, the parenting skills that they've learned, the caring skills that they've learned, which are so transferable. But at the same time, you need to have the opportunity to implement that. And, for so many people with very young children, who can't afford childcare, they don't actually have very many choices.
Yeah. And even if you're able to solve the childcare issue, in terms of people or money to fund it, then there's the self-belief, and the confidence to go out there and find something that you're going to be able to do, because you maybe suffer from imposter syndrome, or you've been out of the workplace for so long, so you don't know. You believe that you can't do it anymore. The world's moved on too fast.
Yeah.
It was quite interesting. A few years ago, I joined a company through a women returners program for women that had been off work for an extended period of time. And I suppose I'd always kind of really kept my finger in the pie and kind of had my own business anyway. So I was still very up to date with how things worked. And I'm a technophile anyway. But there were some other women that joined at the same time, and it was quite overwhelming for them, just getting up to date with how to use Microsoft Word and Excel and PowerPoint and Outlook, and all of these things had moved on. So, well, not actually as much as they probably thought they had in say 5 to 10 years, but that can be enough to paralyze somebody and saying, I'm just not going to do it.
Yep. Yep. Oh, absolutely. I think it's really scary. And there's Women Returners is an extraordinary organization, and they do great things. And yes, I think there's that doubt that sets in. And once you've got that kind of hurdle, once the shoulders have gone up and you're feeling all anxious, it's incredibly difficult to get through that.
Yeah.
And we live in a world where everybody assumes now that we can all use technology to the best of its ability, which, is frankly not true for any, and even if you are a technophile, there will constantly be things that you discover that you didn't know before.
Yes, all the time.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the moments that you're on camera and you've forgotten to unmute yourself.
We can all laugh about those these days, can't we?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I had my heart goes out a lot to people that are paralyzed by technology. And I do know lots of them. And I suppose I always try to help people as much as I can, just even doing simple things that can, save time and save effort, because it does make a big difference. But it is hard for everybody, and it's so fast moving. And then the press doesn't help either, because these days we're all talking about AI and what ChatGPT can do and all these things, and everybody's like, oh no, and now there's something else. But
I'm not the biggest fan of lots and lots of choice personally. That's the thing that paralyzes me. So I'm very keen on trying to think about what are the things that I can cut out, that I don't have to do anymore. I'm really quite excited that I'm not going to be bothering with Twitter anymore. Way tick that off the list. I liked LinkedIn. I use Instagram to stalk one of my goddaughters who's traveling. She's had a year off. So we're linked in on Instagram, and I get to see these amazing places that she's visiting. So there's so much that's hugely positive. But at the same time, we live in a world that seems to be increasing in pace all the time. One of the other women that I've worked with is a woman called Helen Beedham, who's just won the Best Business Book of the Year, called The Future of Time. And her book really gave me pause for thought around, what are we choosing to spend our time on?
Yeah. And does she have any suggestions? I'm just writing this one down because this sounds good. It sounds
great.
like my book.
Yeah, it's great. For her, I think, I'm trying to distill a book into 2 sentences is not necessarily one of my greatest skills. But I think for her, it's about being intentional with time. It's about deciding what you are going to do and what you're not going to do.
Yeah.
And then there's something I think about, at what depth are you going to invest in?
Yeah.
And giving yourself enough space to recharge and become slightly more resilient.
Yeah.
Because I think that, and I do think it is actually a peculiarly female thing, that women will quite often set standards for themselves
Yeah.
that they wouldn't set for their closest friends.
Yeah.
So if they wouldn't set them for their closest friends, why are they setting them for themselves?
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I mean, there's a presentation I give sometimes in it about slowing down to speed up, because I think there's actually quite a lot in that as a concept as well, and I've definitely benefited from that. Doing more mindfulness to slow down and then reconnect with what's important. But there's the very well-known Eisenhower matrix, which is you can allocate tasks, depends on how urgent they are and how important they are. And I think there's a place to replace the importance matrix with kind of like, is it aligned with your values instead? Because it's just so important that what we spend our time on is something that is aligned with us and nourishes us and fills us up from the inside as well as from the outside.
Yeah.
And I think that's another layer to put onto things that many people miss. And once you take out all of the things that aren't aligned with your values, actually it cuts out quite a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting way of looking at things, and something that I'm going to take away from this conversation.
Yay, that's great. I love that. And I'm going to go and have a look at the future of time as well, because I love getting people's concepts on how to best use time as a self-professed hyper efficient person who always likes to use the most of the time I have available, although I am getting more into the being rather than the doing, and that does make a difference. And I think that goes back to the start of our conversation, that sort of female and masculine energy, the male energy that's been in the workplace for many decades has been a very masculine doing energy, and women have tried to conform with doing, and leaning more into their masculine to do that. And I think that's maybe got a little bit too far out of kilter. And now we're kind of in a time where actually, if we can all, men and women, lean more into our feminine side and learn to be more and to trust and to be more intuitive and creative, then it helps maybe redress some of this balance and helps it just helps with some of the mental health issues that we have around, and many things, to be fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's my little thoughts on the subject. I don't think it really solves anything, but yeah.
It's been great talking to you today, Claire. Thanks so much for your time.
No, my pleasure. It's been absolutely lovely having you on here. I thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll continue to have more conversations in the future as well, because I really admire the work you're doing. And you've got a really big mountain to climb, helping to solve that one, but it's definitely worthwhile doing. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Claire.
Thanks, Jane.